Hello, creators of campaigns on the Amber Finance platform. I'm very excited to talk to you about how you can make your campaigns much more attractive to backers of campaigns on the Amber Finance platform by articulating two important points: the theory of change and the reward plan. Before we proceed, I'd like to just remind you can drop us a comment on our YouTube channel, Facebook, LinkedIn, or any of our social media channels. Indeed, during this live presentation, if you have a question, don't hesitate to drop it on the chat box. At the end of the presentation, we'll make sure we address all of your questions. Here is what we'll cover today. We'll look at what motivates backers to contribute to campaigns on our platform. We'll look at what are the dimensions through which you can create value for these backers. Then we'll invoke a principle or theory called the social impact map and show how that can help you map out the value you're creating to backers' needs. Then we'll conclude with the use case, which in this particular instance will be the Amber Finance theory of change. Let's now step up our energy level with this introductory video. So why do backers fund campaigns on the Amber Finance platform? To be able to respond to this question, we must remember there are two categories of backers. We have the crowd on the one hand, and we have big impact organizations on the other. The crowd is more or less your community, your friends, family, business network, and beneficiaries. A family member, for instance, may feel grateful about something you've done to them, or for some blessing which they think they have in their lives. For example, they've just survived some major illness, or they've just been promoted on their job and they decide to give a token of gratitude. It could even be a friend who just likes the kind of thing you're working on and decides to give you a token of support. It could even be members of your business network, clubs, or whatever organizations you belong to, who just like the idea of you implementing a particular social campaign and decide to give you a token of support, $100, $50, whatever the contribution might be. Interestingly enough, beneficiaries will be one of our most important backers. They'll be looking at the benefits they'll get from the campaign being rolled out within their community, and for that reason, they'll be very glad to contribute to your campaign. The most successful campaigns in Europe and North America have gotten their contributions mostly from the crowd, the general public, people whom they do not personally know. Now, one of the reasons why these people will contribute to campaigns is because they want to promote a campaign that they believe is going to have an impact on society. So it's a way to support the campaign because they see that the campaign has proof of concept. Big backers have a different motivation. These are impact investors, humanitarian organizations, donor organizations, governmental and non-governmental entities, NGOs, etc. These organizations tend to have millions upon millions of US dollars that they've set aside to help implement the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. One of the objectives of which is to reduce social inequalities between underprivileged communities and the rest of the world. Some of them are charities or foundations owned or sponsored by ultra-high net worth individuals who really just want to make the world a better place. They've had everything they felt they needed in life, and they are looking to contribute to making the world much better than they met it. They want to leave a legacy. They want to hand over to the next generation a planet that's much more green, a people that is much more healthy, physically, mentally, and spiritually. These are all some of the most dominant motivations why big organizations, charities, foundations come together, pull together funds to back campaigns such as the ones that you are putting on the Amber Finance platform. Now that we understand why backers will come to our platform to contribute to a campaign, Let us ask ourselves the question, how can we create value for these backers? One way to do so is to look at something called the triple bottom line. Some schools refer to the triple bottom line as the 3 Ps, which stand for people, planet, and profit. Backers are on the lookout for campaigns that are sustainable. That's to say, campaigns that can deliver on the triple bottom line. As you go about filling the basic campaign information page on our website, you must remember that you'll be expected to articulate the reward that you provide to backers of campaigns on our platform. As you do so, always remember to articulate the impact on people, the planet, and on profit. That's how backers will know if your campaign is sustainable or not. One way to do so is to lay hands on the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. If your campaign is going to help reduce poverty, malnutrition, if it's going to contribute towards improving health and well-being of people within your community, improve on the education of children and girls, then surely you're helping to address one of the key pillars of the triple bottom line, which is people. The funding set aside to take care of environmental issues continues to grow at an exponential rate. One of the reasons is because humanity has come to realize that we must take good care of our planet if we want to live healthy and happy in this world. Therefore, campaigns which contribute towards clean energy, reducing climate change, improving on the quality of life below the water, life on land, clean water, sanitation, etc., would attract quite a lot of backers, and there's a good chance that they'll get their funding within 90 days. Concerning profit, one thing to bear in mind is that the kind of backers we are attracting on Ambra Finance are not the ones who are looking for a return on their investment in terms of financial returns. We are looking at backers who want to create impact, but they also want to ensure that the kind of campaigns they are putting their money in are campaigns that are financially sustainable in the long run. This means that they are not looking for campaigns that are giving some very high earnings per share or making the most exorbitant earnings before interest and tax. They are looking for campaigns that have good balance sheet ratios. What's the liquidity ratio? What's the return on equity? How much of the money you make you're going to be reinvesting to creating social impact? Is the business sustainable in the medium term? What is your burn rate? Are you going to be able to have enough cash in 2-3 years down the line to continue to operate? So make sure your campaign either addresses one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals around people or planet, and at the same time is able to remain sustainable financially in the long term. In addition to the triple bottom line, the campaign has got to articulate a sustainability plan. The golden rule here is that charity begins at home. Your campaign has got to articulate its responsibility insofar as the planet is concerned. It has to articulate a certain level of responsibility over the people that it's influencing, its stakeholder network, and finally, it has got to be economically feasible. Let's now look at the social impact map. The social impact map is a very simple principle. It's really a way to articulate the impact of your activities by looking at what are the immediate outputs, the short-term and the long-term outcomes. It is a 4-step process that allows you to show or demonstrate how the things you're going to be doing will create change in society and the planet and perhaps economic change. In order to better understand the social impact map and create the change that you intend to create, you must be able to distinguish between an output and an outcome. Now, if these are confused, then there's a good chance that the change which you intend to bring may not eventually be created. Take the case of a campaign whose mission is to eradicate malaria within Africa. The core activity is the distribution of malaria nets. The output is the number of beneficiaries to whom the malaria nets have actually been distributed to. So backers will be looking at what's the size of this population of beneficiary and how many of them eventually get the malaria net. Then in terms of outcome, they'll be looking at 2 aspects, the short-term and the long-term outcomes. The short-term outcome can be evaluated by looking at how many of these target beneficiaries actually use the malaria net. They use them by sleeping inside the malaria net in the night. The long-term outcome in this particular context will be evaluated by looking at, do people still come to hospitals, clinics nearby and complain or are diagnosed of malaria? It is possible to have more than one activity. The key is to be able to measure the output and the outcome for each activity. A single activity may have more than one output or more than one outcome. Most importantly is to be able to articulate them and show how the change is being created, and that begs the idea of the theory of change. The idea is to focus on 3 to 5 activities which you have the skill set, the competitive advantage, and the know-how to be able to create an impact. Remember, we are talking about the theory of change. You've got to be able to articulate a few outputs and some short and long-term outcomes, which by carrying out that activity, you're able to create the change that you intend to. The change you're going to create is the reward to the backer, and that's what they are looking for. The more you articulate the change, the reward, the impact, the more likely your campaign will be funded. Let us conclude today's presentation by looking at the Amra Finance theory of change. This will be our use case on how we can use the social impact map to articulate the change we want to create with the social impact campaign. Amra Finance has 3 primary activities. The first one has to do with creating and maintaining the platform, that is our website or our app, which users and creators of campaign go in there to upload their campaigns and to contribute to campaigns that have proof of concept. Amra Finance has a team of developers, UI, UX, and operators who provide end-user support and research and development work to be able to make sure that the platform doesn't only achieve today's needs, but is able to leverage trends and advancements in technology to be able to improve on the service it provides to its users. At the heart of the primary activities of Amra Finance is community outreach. This has to do with educating users, educating creators of campaigns, such as what I'm doing right now with this webinar. It has to do with business development, reaching out to big donor organizations to be able to convince them as to the value add which Amra Finance is bringing by disintermediating the relationship between target beneficiaries and big donor organizations, reducing overhead costs and creating and improving on the impact. Amra Finance seeks to leverage the growing trend around digitalization to promote community outreach. So through its digital platforms, LinkedIn, social media accounts like Facebook, YouTube, etc., Amra Finance promotes your campaigns free of charge. Once you create a campaign on the Amra Finance platform, you can be sure that it's going to reach hundreds upon hundreds of millions of potential backers around the globe, who would then, if they're interested in the campaign or if it's attractive enough, contribute to your campaign and help you raise the funding that you have targeted. Last but not the least, Amra Finance seeks to provide risk transformation support. This has to do with verification, ensuring that it's not a scammer sitting on the other side of the continent in Africa and trying to reap backers off their money. It has to do with incubator support, providing the business support that creators of campaigns need to be able to articulate their campaigns, giving it a chance and making it look attractive enough to backers so that they can raise the funding they need. In some cases, Amra Finance provides what is called a holistic solution. This is where a campaigner comes to Amra Finance in private and says, "We are very good at doing what we do. We don't know how to raise money. Would like you to go about doing the fundraising for us in private." Similarly, in addition to the free incubator support, Amra Finance also provides on-demand business incubator. What does this really mean? It means that a creator of campaign comes to us and says, "Please help us write our business plan, do our pitch deck for us, do evaluation, financials, budgeting and everything so that we can focus on creating our impact while you help us to make our campaign bankable in the eyes of backers." Another risk transformation activity that Amra Finance provides is that of piecemeal audits. So disbursements of funds that have been raised by backers through the Amra Finance platform will be made in piecemeal. We will carry out piecemeal audits to make sure that the campaigner can articulate and show us how they've spent some of the funds that they've committed to the project before we do a second installment, until we are able to convince ourselves that that particular campaigner has been using the funds for the reasons they had committed to, for the reasons they had raised the funds in the first place. Shall we be able to make further disbursements? At the end of the day, the whole idea behind risk transformation is to reduce asymmetric information between the campaigns and the backers. This is to increase the chances of backers coming on board to Amra Finance and contributing to campaigns with the confidence that we will refund them their money in case we find that the campaign is not worthy of what they had loaded on our platform. In terms of output, the first output is ease and convenience of access. This is an output that matches a particular input which is around platform and product R&D. With 5 clicks maximum, a user should be able to back a campaign. The second output is around the growth in the number of platform users. Because Amra Finance seeks to create an Africa-wide marketplace, an Africa-wide community, it is right and fitting that it should be targeting more than 300 million users on the platform, active and interacting, every day, and that's an output that it would like to achieve. Another output will be to increase campaign success rates. I tell you what, the only reason why campaigns will be achieving their success, the funding goals, will be because of risk transformation. The fact that asymmetric information between campaigns and backers has been reduced will give backers a reason to back campaigns, knowing fully well, and I repeat, that if for whatever reason the creator of the campaign is not using the funds for the purpose for which the funds were raised, that which has not been disbursed to the campaign will be refunded to the backers. In terms of outcome, there are 3 short-term outcomes. The first one is around delivering cheaper alternative funding from the crowd and big backers to campaigns that have proof of concept. The second short-term outcome is around really standing in between beneficiaries on the one hand in Africa and backers around the world who would like to create impact by contributing to campaigns worthy of the purpose. The third outcome, which I think I've called out somehow, is to reduce asymmetric information regarding African campaigns. This outcome is very important because unlike campaigns that are lodged in crowdfunding platforms in Europe and North America, Africa has an issue of credibility, an issue of trust. The level of corruption in Africa is relatively high. The level of business literacy and business acumen is relatively low. And therefore, Amra Finance wants to achieve that objective of being able to make the campaigns bankable and at the same time being able to make the creators of the campaign trustworthy so that backers feel confident to be able to contribute to the campaigns. In terms of long-term outcomes, there are 2. The first one is to reduce social inequalities between communities. Africa being backwards, there's a reason for us to want to reduce the backwardness, which is Sustainable Development Goal number 11. And the other one has to do with partnership development. Within Amra Finance, we believe that through digitalization, leveraging fintech, we are able to create a virtual community that can benefit from financial services that are very disruptive of the current centralized financial services industry, which makes it difficult for Africa to get the funding that it needs to be able to step up its game. All of these are in service of the overarching mission, which is to address Africa's unique financial and socio-economic inclusion challenges. You can see from the Amra Finance case that we have leveraged the social impact map to be able to articulate the change that Amra Finance intends to bring. Okay, from the activities to the output that it will produce, the short-term outcomes, the long-term outcomes, and the overarching mission. The theory of change, therefore, should form the basis for the articulation of your reward plan, the plan which you want to show to backers as a way to entice them to make your campaign attractive so that they can see in it something that they are interested in, which is creating impact. And the more you articulate that through the input activities that can be mapped to the output, short-term goals and long-term goals, then you stand a greater chance of getting funded by these backers. At this point, I'd like to wrap up this presentation and let the floor open for questions and answers. But before I do so, let's just examine how you can reach out to Amra Finance beyond this webinar. You can access this webinar and indeed all other webinars which we do every week on our YouTube channel, Amra Finance, on our Facebook page, Amra Finance, and on our website, amrafinance.com. We also have a LinkedIn channel where you can interact with us, ask us any questions you might have, and we'll be glad to support in responding instantly. The Amra Finance vision, insofar as its impact funding platform is concerned, is to uplift Africa. We believe it's time for Africa, so let's just do it.